I was born in a small town, and I lived in a small town. I like you guys. Until I was about 20 years old. You all know where I'm going with this. It's kind of like the John Cougar Mellencamp song. Kind of. When I remember myself in that small town, I see a community of 1,600 white people, surrounded by yellow and green cornfields. I hear the roar of loud trucks heading to the bright lights of Friday night football. And I feel the excitement of hundreds of smiling faces gathering at our annual summer carnival and parade. I vividly remembered the moments that shaped who I am today. The joyful ones, the scary ones, and the confusing ones. In this small town, everyone knows everyone. We would see familiar faces at church on Sundays. I would hear folks discussing that week's sermon, what is right, what is wrong, and what is allowed in the world. I would sometimes feel shame, embarrassment, and confusion as I tried to comprehend why some of my thoughts and feelings did not seem to align with the conversations I was hearing. Even at 5 years old, I had a lot of questions. On a crisp fall Saturday afternoon, I was watching college football with my dad. I felt comfortable and safe with my dad, even understood by him. So while we were watching football, I decided to blurt out, "Dad, what happens if girls like girls instead of boys?" My dad, after a few minutes of silence, turned to me, leaned in, and with big eyes and a soft voice, said, "They don't identify with those feelings, hon." I didn't understand what he meant. They don't identify with those feelings. These feelings felt like a big part of me. How do I not identify with me? I felt like maybe he didn't understand what I meant, or maybe for the first time, he didn't understand me. My stomach churned, my face went flush. I ran outside and jumped on my bike. I tried really hard to pedal away from my feelings, to pedal away from being seen. The only suspicion I had at this point of my gayness, it's okay to laugh, was the innocent crush I had on my female kindergarten teacher. And that was enough for me to know that something wasn't right about my feelings. I was too scared to dare ask anyone else about them. Like John Mellencamp says, it was at this point I learned to fear in a small town. I learned to fear myself and to fear others discovering my truth. So I decided to figure it out on my own. I thought about it, and I decided that what my dad meant when he said, "Don't identify with the feelings," is you pretend. You pretend like you don't have the feelings. So I became really good at pretending. At first, it was simply pretending that I was invisible. I worked really hard at being small and unnoticeable. As I started high school, I looked around for any sign that it was okay for girls to like girls. I found a few references on TV, but none in my small community. Everyone must be right. It's not okay to have these feelings. I decided that if I can't be the real me, then I can get really good at pretending. And I went all in. I grew my hair long. I accepted my mom's offers to buy me pastel shirts, dresses, and I decided to date boys. I quickly learned that humor deflects any real connection. And this defense mechanism worked. No one knew me at all. And yet, they liked this pretend Gina. By senior year, I became prom queen. I said all in. I had the lead in the school play. And most importantly, I would occasionally hear my parents bragging about me to family members and friends. I remember thinking, this must be what it means to fit in. But I always wondered, why do I feel so empty and sad inside? I had built myself a mirage of a life. On the outside, it looked acceptable to my family, to my friends, to my community members. Those I wanted and really needed approval from. I dated men, eventually married one. I graduated from the University of Illinois with a master's in social work. And I worked for many years as a school social worker. Every day, it was my job to encourage and guide kids to listen to their hearts and to follow their truth. And my stomach churned as I heard myself day after day after day, encouraging others to do the very thing I was running from. It wasn't a surprise that it all became too much. I was in way over my head. I ruined relationships. I couldn't keep up with my job. I was fired from a job. I was crashing and burning, and the weird thing is, I didn't fully know it. Fresh off a divorce, I decided the smartest thing I could do was move back to that small town. I was certain that would be the place where I would figure it all out. I would figure out what was wrong with me. I was still doing one-on-one therapy, listening and supporting others in their journeys of creating and being their true selves, and still going home filled with shame and disgust of living a double life. And then one day, something happened. I met a girl. And guess what? She was interested in me, and I was interested in her. And for the first time in my life, I was honest with her. Now, the joke is not lost on me here, guys. I was blown away that I had been all over the United States at this point, and this was happening here. In the first place, that I learned to really be afraid of myself and to try and run away from myself. And yet, there was another part of me that felt relieved and free for the very first time. But here was the thing. She wanted to live a life with me in the open. She would often say, "I will not be a secret because we are only as sick as our secrets." And she is right. At this point in life, I knew that the majority of people important to me believed being gay is a sin. They would disown me, and I was terrified. I really wanted to believe the words that John Mellencamp sang about the simplicities of living in a small town. Yeah, I can be myself here in this small town, and people let me be just what I want to be. But it's not always that simple. One night during the spring of 2006, I was out for a run in my small town. The streets were quiet, the air was cool, and smelled of fresh-cut grass. Halfway through my route, I found myself passing the empty football field where I spent so many Friday nights. It's a special place because my dad was the high school football coach there for 30 years. And the field now bears his name, Gary Johnson Field. I stopped, went inside, stood on the 50-yard line, and looked up at the big white crow's nest. I thought about him and me and this life. He was terminally sick. And for the first time ever, I could viscerally feel that this life really ends for all of us. I was sad and scared, knowing I was going to lose him. And then it hit me. I was more scared that I would go through my entire life and never really be or know the true me. I have to go. I have to choose myself. I moved to Champaign with my partner, thinking the move would make everything better. People would accept me here, so naturally I will accept myself. But I had no idea how to be the real me. I spent years fighting those who couldn't accept me, hiding from those who actually did accept me, and doing a combination of hiding and fighting with those who did not really know me. I proceeded to make a mess of things. So much so that I ultimately ended up without a home, sleeping in my car near the cornfields on the edge of East Urbana. Ironically, I had the training to know that this was all a manifestation of my trauma, but I couldn't find my way out, not alone. Fear was my constant companion. Often, it was my only companion. It was here in my darkest hour that I had to make some tough decisions. I thought about, what would I say to one of my clients if they were in this very same position? I asked myself that a lot. And suddenly the answer was clear. I had to be vulnerable. Admit that I needed help. Really let someone else in. Lay it all out on the table. I started seeing a therapist every Wednesday at noon, and I shared all of my fears, my shame, my doubts, my lies. I gave every secret that I was conscious and aware of to David, Wednesday after Wednesday after Wednesday, for 8 years, and he gave me unconditional love. I also realized that if I was really going to heal and grow, I needed to take an active approach outside of that therapy room. So I read every book I could get my hands on about trauma and the nervous system, and I found the one thing that had the power to change everything. Find the good. Look through and feel all of the pain and the confusion and the suffering, and find the good. Find the good in people, in nature, in arts, in music, in sports. I opened a social media account. I named it Good Things and challenged myself to post 10 good things a day for 1 year. At first, I was surprised at how difficult it was to find good things to post. Yet, I loved the challenge, and it became a new framework for my thinking throughout every day. Soon I realized there are good things everywhere when you choose to look for them, even in the darkest moments. Today, I live in Urbana with my incredible wife, Lindsay, and we run a thriving mental health practice filled with many special, talented, and loving people. And every day as I pull out of our driveway, I can see that spot in the cornfield where I used to park my car to sleep when I was without a home. Every day I am reminded of two worlds. The one where I isolated myself, where I hid and fought the world, and the one I live in now, a life where I'm grateful to give and receive love with so many other people. Now, when I tell my team or people I work with to listen to their hearts and live their truth, I say it without feeling disgust or irony. I can say it because it was my only path to freedom, joy, and self-love.